So I just wanted to take a real brief moment to kind of talk about how vaccines are kind of, researched and then developed on it. Research can be going on for a while, but once you reach those kind of clinical trials of it, there are different phases, and how they were able to kind of move as quickly as what they were is they overlapped all of these kind of clinical trials. On it. So not necessarily a 100% overlap, but as they start phase 1, they're already recruiting and working on phase 2 and then phase 3 with it. A typical vaccine trial can potentially take years to do if people are kind of taking their time and going through one phase at a time and evaluating the phase before they even start recruiting on the second phase. Where this was all just kind of done, making sure that they were recruiting ahead of time to get things moving quickly. On it. So this just kind of walks through the typical 3 phases of it. On the clinical trials that they may do is they're generally kind of looking of, vaccine safety is of utmost important on it, really determining does the vaccine work, if there are really serious side effects, what the dosing is as they kind of go through with it. And then you want larger groups of people that you're able to test the vaccine on, and then they reach, hundreds or up to, thousands of people in that kind of phase. You're normally up to about 30,000 people or more in that phase 3 trial to really determine if, is it safe to use or not. It then still continues to go through all of the requirements that other vaccines as far as review from FDA. There's just some pieces of it, we don't necessarily know long-term outcomes of like, how long do we have immunity? I mean, that's something that will continue to ongoing research. So it is why the vaccines are approved under like an emergency use authorization to be able to provide them. Move on here. So currently we have 2 types that are approved. They are both what is called messenger RNA. On it, we have the Pfizer. It does require ultra cold storage, which we do have in Clermont County. 2 doses, 21 days apart. It's, an intramuscular injection, so shot in the arm. The Moderna does require standard freezer kind of shipping, so it's a little bit more stable with it, but we have capacity for it also. We can take any type of vaccine. The 2 doses are 28 days apart. It's still an intramuscular injection on it. And then we're waiting to hear on 2 more products. So when I originally did this PowerPoint, I said early 2021. We do know Johnson & Johnson has already submitted their application on it, and then AstraZeneca should probably be coming soon. And they are what is known as kind of viral vector vaccines, and we'll talk a little bit about what the differences of those are, but they use kind of a cold virus. I do want to be clear, all vaccines are 100% voluntary at this point. We do encourage people to be vaccinated on it, but it is an individual's choice to do that. I'm not going to go into great detail on these slides. I will be more than happy to share them out, afterwards if there's any questions on it. I did kind of swipe one of these from Pfizer on it, just to really kind of took a look at the different types of vaccine. The messenger RNA is more of like a synthetic where they look at the genetic sequence of it and really look at putting it into kind of this lipid cell, like a little bubble on it that's in the vaccine that's delivered in order to do it. And we're gonna talk about, does it impact your DNA and those types of things. We'll answer some of those questions. Viral vector vaccines are they typically use what's considered like an attenuated, a deactivated virus or a dead virus. And a lot of times the ones that are currently being done, the adenovirus, are like common cold viruses that they put it into to be the delivery mechanism in order to do it. Both of the intent is to for your body to recognize that spike protein and realize that they need to build antibodies to it. And building of antibodies is a natural thing that your body does, whether it's to the illness itself or to the vaccine. So just to briefly cover Ohio's vaccine allocation plan, phase 1A, which is, there are a few individuals still out there, but we're primarily wrapping up, were initially healthcare workers who were routinely involved in the direct care of COVID-19 patients. On it, our long-term care, our nursing home, our assisted living on it. Some of our state ran facilities for psychiatric, and then there was a group of people with developmental disabilities, mental health, substance abuse that live in those group homes, and kind of still it's that congregate care setting that we're concerned about on it. And then our EMS providers, because they are direct healthcare providers also. Phase 1B, which is what I think we're, most people are really want to know information about for right now. And then I think the next biggest question is what's next. Phase 1B is Ohioans age 65 and up. Now, knowing that like we started with 80 and plus, and then we're dropping to 75 and 70 as we go down with it. There was also a group for severe congenital, and that really means, people were born with certain diseases, developmental or early onset and inherited conditions. And I'm not going to read through that list. I do want to make sure people understand these are very severe diseases on it, or severe conditions. Some of them to be eligible for vaccination. So I'm just going to kind of point out severe congenital heart disease. You have to have it, and you have to have been hospitalized within the last year to be eligible for vaccination. Same thing with things like asthma. It does require that you had to have been hospitalized within the past year to be eligible. So this isn't, just minor type things where maybe, you have asthma and you have an inhaler, but if you haven't been hospitalized, you're still not eligible at this point for vaccine, hopefully coming relatively soon. And then the state did also pick up the adults and employees in the K through 12 schools. Everybody wants to know kind of what's in the next phase. Ohio is still working on that. They have not released information at this time. We are going to be in this phase 1B with our older adults for quite some time with it. We have about 17,000 people that had signed up on our wait list. I think we've made it through about 4,000 or 5,000 of those individuals. So still many more to go. We are not the only provider of vaccine. And we recommend anybody can go anywhere to any provider to be able to be vaccinated, but we are going to be here for a while. If you look at just kind of Clermont County and you look at our population that's 65 plus, it's about 40,000 individuals. So we do intend to be in this phase for several weeks here, or months or so even, and before we kind of get additional vaccine opening up. The good news is with the Johnson & Johnson product coming on, and then we're also hearing of, ramping up production at the federal level on the Moderna and the Pfizer product. We do anticipate there's going to be more vaccine allocation coming soon. So, as far as the vaccines being safe, we talked a little bit about the research, how they still go through FDA approval for it. Currently, the two approved vaccines, the Pfizer vaccines, about 95% effective. Moderna is about 94% effective. Johnson & Johnson is a little bit lower on it. It's around the 70% on it. However, there are some big benefits with Johnson & Johnson because it's a single dose shot. And there are a lot of times it's very difficult to get people back for second doses. You have to kind of keep in mind in vaccine world, anything that's really above, 60% is really good on it. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It is going to be a little bit, lower on it, but it's still going to be a really good vaccine and a great option for people. All right, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here. We already talked a little bit about the fact that, the process being rushed, which is a lot of concern. Again, it was just about really running concurrent trials, kind of overlapping some of those processes, which typically isn't done in it when we develop vaccines. Questions about, because it's an mRNA vaccine, will those vaccines alter your DNA? So the way that the mRNA vaccine enters the cell, it never actually enters the nucleus of the cell, which is where DNA is kept. So it will not, do anything. It's really kind of like they describe it as instructions or a map for your body to kind of look at that spike protein and say, hey, like this doesn't belong here. We need to build an immune response to that. All right, so questions frequently come up about, can you get COVID-19 from the actual vaccine? So you cannot get it from the vaccine. None of the vaccines that are approved or even in development are going to be able to cause you to actually get COVID-19, but it takes time. So if I get a vaccine, if I got vaccinated today, you're not going to have immediate immunity to it. It is, the Pfizer and Moderna are both 2-dose shots. You don't get up to that 95%, 95%, immunity until about 2 weeks after that second dose. So you can still be exposed to the virus and get it and get COVID. And we have had cases of that occur where somebody's maybe been exposed, they got their first shot, whether they were exposed right before or right after, they still got COVID. Maybe had to wait a little bit longer before they could then get their second shot, depending on where they were at with their illness. So just keeping in mind, it's the same kind of rule of thumb that goes with like flu vaccines, or people, you cannot get the flu from the vaccine. You can be exposed very close to getting the vaccine and still get the flu. Going to be very similar with COVID-19. Side effects on it. There are going to be some minor side effects that people may have. Everyone's immune response is going to be different. So you may have a person who has very mild, no symptoms whatsoever, and then you may have others who have, a little bit rougher time with it as far as causing side effects. So you will get things, fatigue, headache, soreness or redness at the injection site, some muscle and joint pain. I've had people explain it, who particularly after your second shot, after the second shot, it seems to be a little bit worse than after the first one. But I've had them explain it. It's kind of like having some flu-like symptoms with the body aches and everything. But it normally happens not necessarily, so your immune response isn't like immediately after you get the injection on it. It may take several hours. Maybe the next day you feel not so great. And then about 12 hours or so, 12 to 20, it's kind of, you're done and over with it. And you're right back to normal. That is your immune system working. That's how you kind of know, like, hey, I had an immune response. My body's building up those antibodies to it. Anaphylactic reactions. So that is where somebody has a severe reaction, and it's normally very close to shortly after administration of the vaccine. It can occur with any vaccine, particularly if a person is allergic to a component of the vaccine. If they have a history of anaphylactic reactions, there can be concern with that. Every vaccine provider is required to have, medications like epinephrine on site to be able to administer, immediately calling 911. I can tell you, I'm going to knock on wood at this point, we have not experienced anaphylactic reactions at this point. We've had some minor reactions afterwards with things in order to do that. But every vaccine manufacturer is required to be able to kind of deal and handle with if an anaphylactic reaction would occur. So questions come up if there are individuals, are there people who should not get vaccinated at a specific time? So obviously anyone who has a severe allergic reaction to any of the components of the vaccine, the end of the presentation will have links on it to the emergency use authorization that'll have, it lists the ingredients that are in there. So people can kind of review that in advance. Obviously, if they've had a previous severe allergic reaction to one of those components, we likely don't want them getting vaccinated at that point. Anyone who's tested positive for COVID-19 within the last 14 days should not be vaccinated. Some physicians will actually tell you may want to wait until about 90 days afterwards, because you do have natural immunity from the virus that you build up. But general rule of thumb, as far as is, a hard no is typically going to be if you've been tested 14 days prior to. Additionally, if you've come into close contact with anyone within the last 14 days, if you have, you should be quarantining at home. We do not want our vaccinators, getting COVID and getting ill. So we do our utmost to try to protect them. So we also don't want somebody to be vaccinated during that time period. Anyone who is symptomatic with COVID-19, it should not be vaccinated at that point. They should wait till those symptoms resolve. If you've had any other vaccine 14 days prior to, and it's also recommended you wait until 14 days after your COVID-19 to receive any other type of vaccine. The reason for that is simply because they haven't really done enough research in combination with other vaccines to know if there's a problem or not. So it doesn't mean there is, it just doesn't mean that there isn't either. So they recommend that you would wait on that. Additionally, people who have been COVID-19 positive and may have received monoclonal antibodies or convalescent plasma as part of their treatment for COVID-19 are asked to wait 90 days. There is really no research to see how the vaccine interacts with those treatments. So it's recommended you wait for 90 days after that. So questions come up a lot, again, as we kind of talked about, like, well, I've already had COVID-19, should you get vaccinated? So, you know, due to some of the severe health risks with COVID-19 and the fact that we don't know exactly, we know you get some immunity from natural immunity from having the disease. It doesn't last forever. We know there have been reinfections from individuals who have actually had COVID-19 very early on, maybe last year, and they have been reinfected. So we do encourage everyone to be vaccinated, even if they have had COVID-19 previously. On it, everyone's immune systems are going to react a little bit differently. If you can get some increased immunity out of the vaccine, we really want people to receive that. Questions come up about if you would test positive after you've been vaccinated. So as of right now, any of the tests that are used to determine active infection, which would be, like the swab test and stuff that they run on it, the standard, what we call like a PCR or an RNA test on it, is like the gold standard. A vaccine will not trigger that test. It will also not trigger an antigen test, which is your rapid test, again, looking for active infection. There is a potential that it could trigger an antibody test. So an antibody test does not look for current infection. It looks for prior infection. It's looking to see, were you infected previously 6 months ago? Do you have those antibodies in your system? But it's not looking at active infection at that time. Lots of questions came up regarding, pregnant women and breastfeeding women on it. It is recommended that they consult with their physician. They did not do specific tests on pregnant and breastfeeding women. However, there were women in the clinical trials who did become pregnant during that time frame on it. So there isn't necessarily specific safety data, but they're not discouraged from getting vaccinated either. It's really, we want them to have a conversation with their healthcare provider on it. And then if it's recommended they get vaccinated, we want them to be vaccinated. So here are just additional links to information that you can find on vaccine through CDC, through Ohio, information on FDA's website. And then it's going to be a link to the Pfizer fact sheet for recipients and caregivers. It's that emergency use authorization sheet that has a lot more information on it. And then also the one for Moderna. And then our website is on there also. So I'm open to questions at this time. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions, you can either type them in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. We'll be monitoring that and we can ask her those questions. If you have a question that is too long to type, you can go ahead and unmute yourself to ask Julianne your question. I will say on behalf of Clermont Senior Services, we are offering transportation to people over the age of 60 to go to a vaccination appointment. So if you don't have a way to get there, you can call us. That number is 513-536-4115. And that'll take you straight to our transportation department.
Julianne, there are a couple of questions. I don't know if you saw them or not. The first one is, how long does the vaccine last?
Yeah, so this is the part where we don't necessarily have longevity data on the vaccine because it's new. I laughingly joke and talk to people sometimes about, it's a new virus and it's a new vaccine. So I don't know that we don't have necessarily that longevity data. It may require additional boosters in the future for vaccine, which is similar to some other vaccines for different types of viruses. I think, you know, long term, maybe it becomes similar to like flu vaccines where you get a booster yearly. I think we're just going to have to kind of wait and get until we get that additional information about exactly how long it's going to last. So I'm kind of reading here, so I think I can get a key. So can you go outside of Clermont County to receive a vaccine? Yes, you can. So if you have a healthcare provider, or if you go to a Kroger location or somewhere else outside of the county. So what happens with the vaccine is the vaccine we get coming into Clermont County is really allocated based off of our population for Clermont County residents. So I have to keep my vaccine within the county. Now I could transfer it to the hospital if they needed something, or we can do vice versa. But residents can move outside of the county. Certainly, you know, you don't necessarily all see healthcare providers that are in Clermont County. They may be sponsoring a clinic somewhere through one of those healthcare organizations, and you can go and receive vaccine there also. Additionally, I think we're going to see as more and more vaccine becomes available, there's going to be some larger sites that get set up either through the state or federal government that are going to be large vaccination sites. And you could certainly go to any of those. The vaccine is a federal asset. It's a federal vaccine. So we do not deny anyone vaccine based off of residency. You see here.
Next question is, when do you estimate the vaccine will be available for those who are 60 and older?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know that we really have a timeline for that. Again, we have a large waiting list. We are still primarily focusing in the 75 up range right now because we had so many individuals who got on our wait list, and we just kind of go down through it in order to do that. So I am, you know, estimating at this point to look, nothing has been released yet about like the next phase beyond the 65 plus. So I just can't give a timeline for when we would be down to the 60 plus at this point.
Next question is, what is the name of the vaccine website that Governor DeWine has referenced that will be coming out on February 14th?
Yeah, so the state is looking at rolling out some software for scheduling. We are evaluating if we are going to onboard with that also. That will kind of provide a centralized location for people to go to be able to make appointments for vaccination. And Keith, do you have the website? I want to say it's Get Vaccinated Ohio is the name of the website.
I will find it and put it here in the chat momentarily.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize for that. I believe it's getvaccinatedohio. I don't know if it's a .org or a .gov on it. Keith will find it and he'll put it in the chat for us. While he's looking for that, I'll continue to kind of monitor.
So the next question was, can you put those websites on your county website so I can refer to those later? I did link to our vaccine information page in the chat, and that has a lot of the links that Julianne referenced earlier on her last slide. The next question is, I am 72. When will I actually be able to schedule a vaccine appointment, which are nearly impossible to obtain?
Yeah, and we do know that there's a lot of people who are struggling to be able to get on, and it is difficult because different people kind of have different systems with it. I really wish the state system maybe would have been thought of and rolled out, you know, in the fall, so that maybe everybody could have been on the same page with it. So we do encourage for anyone who's trying to get vaccine through public health, please make sure you're signed up on our wait list. You can do that on our website at ccphohio.org. On it. There's a link for individuals to sign up on it. We do kind of pull based off of age groups and then kind of in order as we go down the list. Again, as I kind of mentioned, I think Keith can correct me. I think we're up to about 17,000 people on the wait list.
No, I just checked while you were talking. We're at about 21,000. Okay. But just to kind of give you an update, I went through some of the numbers as well. We've gone through and we've called about 5,000 people. So that doesn't mean we've vaccinated that many, but a lot of those people that we've called have already found vaccinations elsewhere. And as Julianne mentioned, we've been focusing on the age group 75 and older. And I looked, it looks like we have about 200 to 300 names left on that list. And then we'll start into the age group of 70 and older. So we're just about done. I would assume that probably by next week, we will start on the 70 and up age group for phone calls.
Great, thank you, Keith. Yeah, so we just kind of go and pull through our list. So, you know, if you just filled out the survey yesterday, you're probably not going to be on our list. We go back and we try to pull those 75 and 80 up through it. I do recommend people, if you can get on wait lists, that it's fine to be on multiple wait lists. What it's not fine to do is to book multiple appointments and then not show up for them, because that can result in wasting a vaccine in doing that. So it's really critical. We schedule down to the last doses. Sometimes Pfizer in particular is really difficult, because sometimes depending on the size of the needle, the size of the syringe, I may get 5 doses, I may get 6 doses, I may get 7 doses out of a vial with it. So we try to schedule it as best we can. Unfortunately, yesterday was our first day that we ran about 3 or 4 doses short, and we had to turn people away. And we do our best to get them scheduled right away immediately again for our next first dose clinic. But we are trying to get every drop of vaccine out of there and get them into the arms of our residents as quickly as we can. But it just kind of depends on you know, what we're seeing and what we're able to get out of those vials as we vaccinate. So they are labeled as 5-dose vials, but we try to anticipate for 6, and you know, it just doesn't always work out depending on what other you know, supplies that we're receiving in order to do it. Yeah, so as far as people continuing to try, you know, to get reservations, I mean, if you were on our list, we will eventually kind of continue to call, or when if we do transfer over to scheduling through the state system, we will provide information to individuals when that occurs in order to do that, so that they can continue to look at trying to schedule that way. Question about, could you go to another state to receive vaccine? So there are people that can go to other states. So again, keeping in mind, vaccine is allocated based off of populations, where people are at. But again, it is a federal asset. So as of right now, Ohio does not turn anyone down who is out of state. So if a person, you know, maybe is here because they're living with, you know, another family for a few months, they definitely can get vaccinated here. And then, you know, certainly if there may be availability in Northern Kentucky or someplace, I mean, you can look at those too. You're going to have to look from state to state, though, to see if they take out of state residents to be able to do it. But the majority of them that I am aware of right now, no one is restricting in any of our surrounding states is restricting residency to that state for anything. Yeah, so the question was about, you know, if you no longer live in Clermont County, can you sign up here? You can, but I will tell you that we strongly encourage people to sign up in the county that they are at on it. And that again becomes, because I think at some point, right now the state is not restricting anything, but vaccine is being allocated to counties based off of their population of 65 plus. So I'm going to be honest, I don't necessarily want to vaccinate a lot of people. You know, if I'm vaccinating all Hamilton County residents on it, then I'm not giving an opportunity for our county residents to get vaccinated. So we really do try to encourage people to sign up in the county where they live. I cannot deny anybody vaccine due to residency. So we have vaccinated people. You know, if you do sign up on the list and we go down through there and you show up, we'll vaccinate you. But we really do encourage people to sign up in the county where they reside.
Okay, that looks like all of the questions that we've received in the chat. If anybody else has another question, this would be the time to ask. Keith has put the public health website in the chat. You can click on that and it will take you to their resources. We also have a COVID-19 tab on our website at Clermont Senior Services, and that website is clermontseniors.com. And you'll find that tab at the top of the website. It has a lot of the same information. I took a lot of that information from public health website and transferred that to ours, so you can find it in a couple places.
Jennifer, just I don't think this website is up and running yet on the state's end, so I don't think the link will actually work. So I'm going to put a link to the Ohio Department of Health's coronavirus vaccine page, and that information will be there. I believe it's supposed to be up and running by Monday of next week, which would be the 15th.
Okay. All right. Are there any last questions before we sign off here? Okay, it doesn't look like it. Julianne, Keith, thank you all so much for doing this for us today. Again, if you have any questions regarding senior services in Clermont County, be sure to reach out to us. Our number is 513-724-1255. We'll try to point you in the right direction for resources that you may need. All right, I think that's everything. So thank you all so much for joining us today.